The year was 2347, and humanity had finally reached the stars. After 200 years of hard work, scientists had built ships that could travel faster than light. They had sent probes to distant planets. They had found signs of alien life. And now they were ready to meet their neighbors. Captain Daniel Grant stood on the bridge of the Starship Horizon. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in space, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Through the view screen, he could see the Citadel of Unity, a space station so large that it made Earth's moon look small. This was the home of the Galactic Council, a government of over 200 alien species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. His second in command, Lieutenant Commander Katie Morrison, stood beside him. She was younger than Daniel, with red hair and a face full of freckles. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "We are receiving a transmission from the station," she said. Daniel nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Its head was slightly too big for its body, and its fingers were long and delicate. This was a Velthri, one of the founding species of the Galactic Council. The alien's name was Threnix, and he was an ambassador. "You are the species called humans," Threnix said. His voice was cold and flat, like a machine reading from a script. "We have received your application for membership in the Galactic Council. We have studied your history, your culture, and your technology." Daniel straightened his uniform and tried to look confident. "Yes, Ambassador. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation." Threnix stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke again, and his words fell like stones. "Your application has been denied." The bridge went silent. Daniel felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Katie grabbed the edge of her console to keep from falling. Behind them, the other crew members stood frozen in shock. "Denied," Daniel managed to say. "On what grounds?" "Your species is too dangerous," Threnix replied. "We have studied your history. We have seen your wars, your weapons, your violence. In just a few thousand years, you have killed billions of your own kind. You have destroyed your own environment. You have created weapons capable of ending all life on your planet. The Council cannot allow such a species to spread among the stars." Daniel felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. "We have made mistakes," he admitted, "but we have also learned from them. We have united our planet. We have ended our wars. We have come here seeking peace." "Peace." Threnix made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your idea of peace is temporary. Your nature is violent. This is not an insult. It is simply a fact. Some species are meant for the stars. Others are not. Humans fall into the second category." Katie stepped forward. "You cannot judge an entire species based on its past. We have changed. We are still changing. Give us a chance to prove ourselves." Threnix looked at her with something that might have been pity. "The decision has been made. Humanity is hereby restricted to your home system. You may keep your colony on Mars and your stations around your outer planets, but you may not expand beyond these boundaries. Any attempt to colonize other star systems will be considered an act of war against the Galactic Council. And if we refuse to accept these restrictions," Daniel asked quietly, "then you will be destroyed." Threnix said it simply, without emotion. "The Council has fleets of 10,000 ships. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. We have fought wars that lasted for centuries and destroyed civilizations that were old when your species was still living in caves. Do not test us, human. You will lose." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Daniel stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then he turned to face his crew. Their faces showed a mix of emotions. Some were angry. Some were scared. Some looked like they wanted to cry. Daniel understood all of those feelings. He felt them too. "Take us home," he said quietly. "We have work to do." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Daniel wrote his report. He chose his words carefully, knowing that billions of people would read them. He described the meeting, the rejection, and the threat. He did not try to make it sound better than it was. People deserved to know the truth. When the horizon arrived in Earth orbit, there were already protests in the streets of every major city. People were angry. They had dreamed of the stars for so long, and now those dreams had been crushed by aliens, who thought humans were nothing more than violent animals. World leaders met in emergency sessions. Some argued that humanity should accept the Council's restrictions. They pointed out that the aliens had technology far beyond anything humans had developed. Fighting them would be suicide. Others disagreed. They said that humanity had never accepted defeat before. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They had split the atom and walked on the moon. They would not let some alien bureaucrats tell them where they could and could not go. The debate went on for months. Daniel was called to testify before the United Nations. He answered their questions honestly, describing the power he had seen at the Citadel of Unity. He did not try to minimize the danger. They are more powerful than us, he admitted. Their ships are faster, their weapons are stronger. They have been traveling the stars for longer than humans have existed. If we fight them openly, we will lose. Then what do you suggest? Asked Secretary General Maria Santos. Daniel looked at her. Maria was a small woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. She had grown up poor in a small village in Brazil. She had worked her way up through politics, fighting every step of the way. She was not someone who accepted defeat easily. I suggest we do what humans have always done, Daniel said. We adapt. We learn. We grow stronger. They think we are nothing but violent animals. Let them keep thinking that. While they are watching our home system, we will find another way. We will build ships they cannot detect. We will find paths they do not know. And when we are ready, we will show them what humanity is truly capable of. Maria smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a weapon. And that is what we will do, she said. The vote was held 3 days later. It was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed. They would not accept the Council's restrictions. They would not kneel. They would find a way to reach the stars. No matter how long it took, and in the darkness of space, the Council watched and waited. Confident that the primitive humans had learned their lesson, they had no idea how wrong they were. 50 years passed. To the Galactic Council, it seemed like humanity had accepted its fate. Human ships stayed within the boundaries they had been given. Human colonies remained limited to Mars and a few moons around Jupiter and Saturn. The occasional patrol ship would scan the solar system, find nothing unusual, and move on. The Council turned its attention to other matters. Satisfied that the human problem had been solved, they could not have been more wrong. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, in a facility that did not officially exist, Dr. Samuel Perry was about to change history. He was a thin man with wild gray hair and glasses that were always falling off his nose. He had spent the last 20 years working on a single problem, and tonight he was finally going to solve it. Run the test again, he said to his assistant, a young woman named Linda Cole. Linda pressed a button on her console. In the center of the laboratory, a ring of metal began to glow. The air inside the ring twisted and folded, like water going down a drain. Then, with a flash of blue light, a hole appeared in the fabric of space itself. Samuel stared at it with tears in his eyes. It works, he whispered. It actually works. He had invented a wormhole generator. Unlike the faster-than-light engines that the Council used, which left trails of energy that could be detected across light years, wormholes were invisible. A ship could enter one end and exit the other instantly, leaving no trace behind. It was the perfect tool for a species that wanted to travel the stars without being noticed. Within months, the first human explorers were slipping through wormholes to chart the unknown regions of the galaxy. They traveled to places so remote that the Council had never bothered to claim them. They found planets covered in forests of crystal trees. They found moons with oceans of liquid metal. They found asteroid fields rich in minerals that humans desperately needed. And they found friends. The Kasari were the first. They were a reptilian species, with green scales and yellow eyes and teeth as sharp as knives. Once, they had been a proud warrior race, with an empire that spanned 100 worlds. Then the council had come. The Khazari had fought back, but they had been crushed. Their homeworld had been stripped of resources. Their people had been scattered across the galaxy, reduced to servants and slaves. Commander Nathan Blake found them on a frozen moon in the outer reaches. His ship, the Wanderer, had stopped there to collect ice for fuel. What he found instead was a hidden colony of several thousand Khazari, living in caves beneath the surface. At first, the Khazari thought he was a council enforcer. They prepared to fight, even though they knew they could not win. But Nathan raised his empty hands and spoke words that changed everything. "We are not with the council," he said. "We are humans, and we know exactly how you feel." The Khazari elder, a scarred old warrior named Vexen, studied Nathan with ancient eyes. He had seen many things in his long life, but he had never seen an alien offer help without wanting something in return. "What do you want from us?" Vexen asked. "Nothing," Nathan replied, "but we would be honored to call you friends." It took time to build trust. The Khazari had been betrayed before, but slowly, carefully, an alliance formed. Humans shared their wormhole technology with the Khazari. In return, the Khazari shared their knowledge of council tactics and weaknesses. They told humans which species were loyal to the council and which ones secretly hated it. They provided maps of council territory and schedules of council patrols. Other species joined the alliance. The Morvani were small, furry creatures with an incredible talent for technology. They could build machines that the council had never imagined. The Zethics were tall and thin, with skin that changed color based on their emotions. They had been diplomats once, before the council had conquered their world. Now they used their skills to recruit other oppressed species to humanity's cause. Back in the solar system, humanity was building. They had learned from the council's mistake. They did not build their shipyards on planets where they could be easily found. Instead, they built them inside asteroids, hidden in the darkness between worlds. They constructed factories on moons that the council had never bothered to map. They trained soldiers in underground bases that could not be seen from space. General Patricia Cole, Linda's older sister, was put in charge of the military buildup. She was a serious woman with short gray hair and a voice that could make even the bravest soldier nervous. She had served in Earth's military for 40 years, and she knew that the war to come would be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. "We cannot match them in numbers," she told her officers. "Their fleets are larger than ours. Their ships are more powerful. If we fight them in open battle, we will lose. So we will not fight them in open battle." Instead, Patricia developed new tactics. Human ships would be smaller and faster than council vessels. They would strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could respond. They would use wormholes to appear behind enemy lines, attack supply convoys, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. They would make the council bleed slowly, one cut at a time. The weapons were new too. Human scientists, working with Morvani engineers, developed missiles that could track enemy ships across vast distances. They created energy shields that could absorb more damage than anything the council had ever seen. They built railguns that could fire projectiles at 1/10 of the speed of light. Punching through enemy armor like paper, year after year, the secret empire grew. 40 worlds were colonized. Hundreds of ships were built. Millions of soldiers were trained. And through it all, the council noticed nothing. They were too busy managing their own empire, dealing with the usual problems of politics and economics and minor rebellions. Daniel Grant, now old and retired, watched the preparations from his home on Mars. He had lived long enough to see his dream become reality. Humanity was not just surviving, it was thriving. Katie Morrison visited him often. She had risen through the ranks to become an admiral, one of the highest-ranking officers in the new fleet. Her red hair had turned white, but her spirit was as fierce as ever. "We are almost ready," she told him one evening as they watched the sun set over the Martian desert. "Another few years and we will have enough ships to defend ourselves." Daniel nodded slowly. "I wish I could be there to see it," he said. "The look on their faces when they realize what we have done, Katie smiled and took his hand. "You will be there," she said. "In every ship, in every soldier, in every heart that refuses to surrender. You've started this, Daniel. You reminded us who we are, and we will never forget." Daniel died 3 years later, peacefully in his sleep. He was buried on Mars, in a cemetery overlooking the same desert where he had watched so many sunsets. His tombstone was simple, with just his name and 2 words beneath it, "He believed." And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Council continued to watch and wait, never suspecting that the humans they had dismissed as violent, primitives, had already built an empire right under their noses. The quiet years were ending. The storm was about to begin. The truth came out by accident. A Council patrol ship, commanded by a Velthari officer named Syrinx, was traveling through a region of space that was supposed to be empty. It was a routine mission, the kind that bored soldiers hated. There was nothing out here except dust and rocks and the endless darkness between stars. Then the sensors detected something impossible. "Commander," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking, "I am reading multiple ships ahead. Large ships. And they are not Council vessels." Syrinx leaned forward in his command chair. "Show me." The view screen changed to display the scene ahead. There were dozens of ships, bigger than anything Syrinx had ever seen outside of a Council shipyard. They were clustered around a massive asteroid. Syrinx could see the glow of welding torches and the flash of engines being tested. This was a shipyard. A secret shipyard in the middle of nowhere. "Identify those ships," Syrinx ordered. The computer took a moment to analyze the vessel designs. Then it displayed its answer, and Syrinx felt his blood turn cold. "Human," the computer said. "Confirmed human design?" That was impossible. Humans were restricted to their home system. They did not have the technology to build ships like these. They certainly did not have the ability to construct a hidden shipyard in deep space. And yet the evidence was right in front of him. Syrinx did not waste time. He ordered his ship to retreat at maximum speed while transmitting everything they had recorded back to Council headquarters. The message traveled faster than light, crossing hundreds of light years in seconds. By the time Syrinx reached safe space, entire Council knew the truth. Humans had escaped. The emergency session at the Citadel of Unity was the largest in centuries. Representatives from all 200 member species crowded into the Grand Chamber, shouting and arguing and demanding answers. High Counselor Threnix, now old and frail, sat in his chair at the center of the room and tried to maintain order. "How did this happen?" demanded Admiral Vorex of the Thalian hegemony. He was a large creature, with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. His species was known for their aggression, and Vorex was considered extreme even by their standards. "We had ships watching their system. We had sensors monitoring their communications. How did they build an entire fleet without us knowing? Their technology has advanced beyond our expectations," one of the Council scientists replied nervously. "They appear to have developed a method of faster-than-light travel that leaves no detectable signature. Our sensors cannot track it." "Impossible," Vorex growled. "Nevertheless, it is true." The scientist displayed images on the main screen. "Our scouts have now confirmed human colonies on at least 40 worlds. They have shipyards, factories, and military bases. They have formed alliances with species we considered insignificant, including the Kezari, the Morvani, and the Zethics. They have been building this empire for decades, right under our noses." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives called for immediate war. Others demanded negotiations. A few suggested that perhaps the Council should simply leave humanity alone, since they had clearly proven their ability to take care of themselves. Threnix finally raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes, but eventually the chamber quieted. "I was the one who rejected humanity's application," Threnix said. His voice was tired, but it still carried the weight of authority. "I believed they were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too primitive. Perhaps I was wrong about some of those things. But I was not wrong about the danger they represent. If we allow them to continue growing, they will eventually challenge our dominance. This cannot be permitted." "Then what do you propose?" asked Counselor Lyrics of the Mendari, a species known for their wisdom and caution. "We must destroy their military capability," Threnix replied. "We must burn their colonies and scatter their fleets. We must show them, and every other species in the galaxy, that defying the Council has consequences. Vorax grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Finally, some sense. I will lead the fleet myself. The vote was close, but in the end, war was declared. The Council assembled the largest fleet in its history, 10,000 ships from dozens of species. Armed with the most powerful weapons the galaxy had ever seen, they would descend upon humanity like a storm, crushing everything in their path. Word of the coming attack reached humanity through their network of spies and allies. Secretary General Victor Reyes, the great-grandson of Maria Santos, addressed the people of Earth and the colonies. He was a calm man, with steady hands and a voice that never wavered, even when delivering the worst possible news. The Council is coming, he said. They are bringing 10,000 ships. They intend to destroy everything we have built and force us back into the cage they created for us. They expect us to kneel. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to remember our place. He paused and looked directly into the camera. They do not know us. They do not understand what we are capable of. They see our history and think they know our future, but they have made a mistake. The same fire that once drove us to war now drives us to protect our homes and our families. The same determination that once built weapons of destruction now builds ships that can carry us to the stars. We are not the species they rejected 74 years ago. We are something new, something stronger, something they should fear. Victor took a deep breath. I will not lie to you. The coming battle will be hard. Many of us will not survive. But I promise you this, we will not go quietly. We will make them pay for every world they burn, every ship they destroy, every life they take. And when the smoke clears, they will know that humanity is not a species to be dismissed or ignored. We are a force to be reckoned with. And we will never, ever stop fighting for our freedom. The speech was broadcast to every human colony in every allied world. Soldiers watched it in their barracks. Pilots watched it in their cockpits. Families watched it in their homes, holding each other close. And across the vast network of hidden shipyards, engines roared to life. Weapons were loaded. Shields were powered up. The human fleet began to move, gathering together for the first time in history. Admiral Katie Morrison, now one of the oldest officers in the fleet, stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Spirit of Earth. She thought about Daniel Grant and the day they had been rejected. She thought about the years of secret building and planning. She thought about everyone who had sacrificed to bring them to this moment. Sound general quarters, she said quietly. All ships, prepare for battle. The storm was about to begin. The Council fleet arrived at the Nexus corridor with all the confidence of a predator hunting wounded prey. Admiral Vorax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hammer of Justice, and watched the stars streak past as his ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 10,000 vessels, representing the combined might of the Galactic Council, spread out across the darkness like a swarm of angry insects. Begin long-range scans, Vorax ordered. Find me the human fleet. His sensor officer worked for several moments, then looked up with confusion on his face. Sir, I am detecting something strange. There appear to be thousands of small objects scattered throughout the corridor. They are not ships. They are. He never finished the sentence. At that exact moment, the first wave of minds activated. The darkness of space exploded into light. Thousands of automated weapons platforms, hidden among the asteroids and debris of the corridor, opened fire simultaneously. Missiles streaked toward Council ships. Railgun rounds tore through armor. Energy beams sliced through shields. The vanguard of the Council fleet, over 1,000 ships, was caught completely off guard. Vorax watched in horror as ship after ship vanished in balls of flame. The Velthary cruiser that had been flying beside his flagship was hit by 6 missiles at once and simply ceased to exist. A Thalian battleship tried to retreat, only to fly directly into a minefield that tore it apart piece by piece. All ships pushed forward. Vorax roared. They cannot have unlimited ammunition. Break through the minefield. He was right, of course. The mines and platforms had limited supplies, but the cost of pushing through was enormous. By the time the Council fleet cleared the corridor, they had lost nearly 2,000 ships. And waiting for them on the other side was the human fleet. It was smaller than Voryx had expected. Perhaps 3,000 ships, a mix of human vessels and allied craft from the Kezari, Morvani, and other species. But these ships did not fight like Council vessels. They were faster and more agile, darting through space like fish in water. And they had weapons that Voryx had never seen before. The first human missile struck a Thalian cruiser and punched straight through its shields like they were not even there. The ship's reactor went critical, and the explosion took out 2 more vessels that had been flying too close. Human railgun rounds moved so fast that Council point defense systems could not track them. Energy weapons cut through armor that should have been impenetrable. Voryx ordered his fleet to concentrate fire on the largest human ships. It was a sound strategy, the kind that had won wars for centuries. But the humans had anticipated it. Whenever the Council fleet focused on one target, wormholes would open, and fresh ships would pour through to reinforce the defenders. Whenever the Council tried to encircle a human formation, the humans would simply disappear and reappear somewhere else. The battle raged for 3 days. Neither side rested. Ships that ran out of missiles switched to energy weapons. Ships that lost their main guns rammed enemy vessels instead. Pilots flew until they collapsed from exhaustion, then were replaced by fresh crews who did the same. On the bridge of the Spirit of Earth, Admiral Katie Morrison directed the defense with calm precision. She was old now, over 90 years, but her mind was still sharp. She had studied Council tactics for decades, and she knew exactly how Voryx would react to every move she made. "They are pulling back to regroup," her tactical officer reported. "We have destroyed or disabled over 4,000 enemy ships." Katie nodded, but she did not celebrate. Human losses were significant too. Over 800 ships, nearly a third of their fleet, thousands of soldiers had died. The Spirit of Earth itself had taken heavy damage, and 3 of its main engines were offline. "Recall all ships to the defensive line," she ordered. "Repair what you can. They will be back." Voryx did return, but this time he was more cautious. He sent smaller groups of ships to probe the human defenses, looking for weaknesses. When he found none, he tried a different approach. He ordered his fleet to bypass the Nexus corridor entirely and attack human colonies directly. It was a mistake. The humans had prepared for this. Every colony had its own defenses: orbital platforms, ground-based railguns, and hidden missile batteries. And every colony had evacuation plans. When Council ships arrived at New Haven, the most populous human colony outside the solar system, they expected to find easy targets. Instead, they found empty cities. The entire population, nearly 2 million people, had been evacuated through wormholes in the hours before the attack. All that remained were automated defenses that fought with the fury of cornered animals. The Council bombarded New Haven from orbit anyway, turning the empty cities into craters of molten glass. Voryx called it a victory, but everyone knew the truth. He had wasted time and ammunition destroying empty buildings, while the humans had saved their people. The war continued for 5 long years. There were victories and defeats on both sides. The humans lost the colony of Sunward to a surprise attack, along with 500,000 people who could not evacuate in time. The Council lost a massive shipyard to a joint human-Khazari strike force, crippling their ability to replace lost vessels. More importantly, the war spread. Species that had been quiet for centuries suddenly rose up against the Council. The Thalian hegemony found itself fighting insurgents on 3 of its own colony worlds. The Velthari homeworld was rocked by protests demanding reform. Smaller species, seeing that the mighty Council could be hurt, began to dream of freedom. Admiral Katie Morrison died in the 4th year of the war, peacefully in her sleep after a long illness. Her last words were a message to the fleet: "Do not mourn me. I have lived to see humanity rise. Finish what we started." Her place was taken by Admiral Christopher Lane, a younger officer who had proven himself in dozens of battles. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and steady hands, the kind of leader who inspired loyalty simply by being himself. "We are winning," he told his officers after taking command. "Slowly, painfully, but we are winning. The Council is bleeding from 1,000 cuts. Their alliances are fracturing. Their people are losing faith. If we can just hold on a little longer, they will break before we do." The turning point came at the Battle of Crixus Station. Crixus was the largest Council logistics hub in the sector, a massive space station that supplied fuel, ammunition, and spare parts to the entire Council offensive. Without it, their fleet would be crippled. Christopher led the attack himself, with a fleet of 500 ships. They struck fast and hard, punching through the defensive perimeter before the Council could organize a response. Human Marines boarded the station and fought their way to the reactor core, planting explosives that would ensure its destruction. When the station exploded, it took most of the Council fleet stationed there with it. The chain reaction destroyed over 1,000 ships and billions of tons of supplies. The Council's offensive collapsed. Without resources, their remaining fleets had no choice but to retreat. For the first time in the war, humanity and its allies were on the offensive. The tide had finally turned. The war did not end with a great battle or a dramatic surrender. It ended with a message, sent through secure channels from High Counselor Threnix to Secretary General Victor Reyes. The message was simple: we must talk. They met on neutral ground. A small moon orbiting a dead star in a region of space that belonged to no one. Threnix arrived in a single shuttle, accompanied only by a young aide who carried his documents. Reyes brought Admiral Christopher Lane, the hero of Crixus Station. The meeting room was plain, with gray walls and a simple table. There were no flags, no symbols, no decorations of any kind. Just two old men and their companions, sitting across from each oath. In uncomfortable chairs, Threnix looked terrible. His pale blue skin had become almost gray, and his large dark eyes were sunken with exhaustion. He had ruled the Council for almost a century, and the weight of those years showed in every line of his face. "I underestimated your species," he said. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "When you came to us seeking membership, I saw only your history of violence and destruction. I did not see your capacity for growth, for adaptation, for stubborn survival against impossible odds. That was my mistake." Reyes studied the alien who had condemned humanity to isolation so many years ago. He felt no hatred, only a strange kind of pity. "What do you want, High Counselor?" "Peace," Threnix replied. "The Council is falling apart. The war has exposed weaknesses that we have ignored for too long. Species that once feared us now see that we can be hurt, that we can be beaten. Rebellions are spreading faster than we can suppress them. If this continues, everything we have built will collapse into chaos." Christopher leaned forward. "And you expect us to help you maintain your empire? After everything you have done to us?" Threnix shook his head slowly. "No, the Council's time is over. I have accepted that. But the galaxy still needs order. It still needs cooperation between species. Without some kind of framework, there will be endless wars as old enemies settle old scores. Billions will die. Entire civilizations will be wiped out. And you think humanity can provide this framework?" Reyes asked. "I think you are the only ones who can." Threnix met his eyes directly. "You have proven that you can fight. But more importantly, you have proven that you can build alliances. The Khazari were our enemies for centuries. They would rather die than trust a Council member. Yet they trust you. The Morvani, the Zethics, a dozen other species that we considered worthless, they have all joined your cause. You have done something the Council never could. You have earned respect instead of demanding obedience." There was a long silence. Reyes thought about everything that had happened since humanity's rejection. The years of secret building. The alliances forged in the darkness between stars. The battles fought, the lives lost, the sacrifices made. All of it had led to this moment. "What exactly are you proposing?" he finally asked. "Dissolve the Council," Threnix said. "Create something new in its place. A government founded on the principles you have demonstrated: equality, cooperation, mutual respect. Humanity would not rule this new order, but you would help lead it. alongside your allies and any council species willing to accept the new terms. The negotiations lasted for months. There were countless arguments, compromises, and near breakdowns. Some human leaders wanted revenge for the colonies that had been destroyed. Some council species refused to accept any agreement that treated humans as equals. There were moments when it seemed like the talks would fail entirely, but in the end, an agreement was reached. The Galactic Council was officially dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Assembly, a new governing body open to all species, willing to abide by its principles. There would be no more forced memberships, no more species restrictions, no more punishment for those who wanted to find their own path among the stars. The signing ceremony was held on Earth, in a great hall built specifically for the occasion. Representatives from over 100 species gathered to witness the birth of a new era. The Kasari elder Vexen, now ancient but still proud, signed on behalf of his people. The Morvani sent their greatest inventor, a cheerful being named Churi, who could not stop touching everything in sight. Even some former council species attended, ready to start fresh under new rules. Threnix was there too, though he was too weak to stand. He sat in a hover chair at the back of the hall, watching as the document was signed by species after species. When it was over, he closed his eyes and smiled. "It is done," he whispered to no one in particular. Perhaps this was always how it was meant to be. He died 3 days later, peacefully in his sleep. Some said he had simply held on long enough to see his work completed. Others said he was too tired to continue living with the guilt of his past mistakes. Either way, he was buried on his homeworld with full honors. The last high counselor of a government that no longer existed, life went on. The Galactic Assembly slowly found its footing. Working through the countless problems that came with uniting so many different species, there were arguments and disagreements, misunderstandings, and setbacks. But there was also progress, cooperation, and hope. Admiral Christopher Lane retired to a small farm on Mars, where he spent his days growing vegetables and watching the sunset over the red desert. He rarely gave interviews, but when he did, reporters always asked the same question: did he think humanity's empire would last? His answer was always the same. "We did not build an empire," he would say. "We built a family." Families argue, families fight, families make mistakes. But families also forgive, families support each other, and families endure. That is what humanity has always done. That is what we will always do. On Earth, children learned the story of how their ancestors had been rejected by the stars, but had refused to accept that rejection. They learned about Daniel Grant and his voyage to the Citadel of Unity. They learned about Samuel Perry and his wormhole generator. They learned about Katie Morrison and the battles she had fought. They learned about the countless ordinary people who had done extraordinary things simply because they believed in a better future. And in the darkness between stars, new ships carried explorers to new frontiers. They were not seeking conquest or domination. They were seeking connection, understanding, and friendship. Every new world they discovered, every new species they met, added another thread to the tapestry of the Galactic Assembly. The stars that had once been forbidden now welcomed humanity with open arms. The rejection that had seemed like an ending had become a beginning. And the empire that humanity had built was unlike any other in the history of the galaxy, an empire of hope, of cooperation, of the stubborn belief that tomorrow could always be better than today. This was humanity's gift to the universe. And it was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were countless wonders still to discover. Humanity would find them all, together with their friends, their allies, and their family among the stars. This was not the end of the story. It was just the first chapter.